Hello everybody. This is the next or the last lesson in the FM2 series, and what we're doing is we're comparing graphs or tax graphs. Now there's a big argument always running whether we should have a flat tax rate or we should have a progressive tax rate, which is what Australia has at the moment. And before we do that, we really need to run through what both of these graphs look like. Now here's just an example straight out of a textbook of a flat tax rate. And this line here, if we look down on the horizontal axis, on the x-axis here, we see the tax income in thousands of dollars. As as we increase that, we also see that the tax payable increases. And so, taxable income increase, tax payable increase, and it actually doesn't matter how much you earn. If you're up to $100,000, or you're down to $40,000, what we know with a flat tax rate or a straight line graph here is that everyone pays the same percentage of tax after a certain, in this point, after $16,000. This is very different to a piecewise graph. Now, this isn't a tax graph, but this is what we call a piecewise graph, because in a piecewise graph, it's basically different functions joined together. So here we see the slope's quite great. Here we see the slope is less. Here we see that it gets a bit steeper again, but not as steep as before. Now, if we compare that to this here, which is a graph or an example that looks at a flat tax rate and a progressive tax rate, we see that with a progressive tax rate, the less money you earn, the less tax you pay. The slower it goes up. Think of it, the slope is less. It's a little bit lazier. But as we earn more money, here we hit 35,000, it goes up again. It gets a bit steeper. You pay a bit more tax. As you go up, you pay a bit more tax until you hit about 80,000, and then it gets steeper again. Now, this is a graph of the tax rates in Australia. This is a graph of just a flat 20% tax rate. And so, because this argument's always going along, we have to think of, who benefits, or should I say, why would somebody argue for a flat tax rate? And so, the big question is, who would benefit from a flat tax rate? In this case, who pays more tax if it's a flat tax rate compared to a progressive one? And so we see here, if I'm earning $30,000 on a progressive tax rate, I would only pay about in between $2,000 and $3,000. Whereas if I'm earning $30,000 on a flat tax rate, I'd pay a lot more. Alternatively, if I'm earning $90,000 on a flat tax rate, I'd pay a lot less than if I do on a progressive tax rate. So who would benefit from this tax system? People who earn more money. Who would suffer the most? In other words, who would pay more tax? People who earn less. Are there any incomes for which the tax would be the same under both systems? Absolutely, because the person at this point, which is what we call the point of intersection, down here, if you're earning about $61,000, you'll see that both of these tax rates, you're paying the exact same amount of tax. Regardless of what type of tax rate you're using. So, people who earn 61,000, is that 61,000, is it correct? Probably thereabouts. From 60,000 to $61,000. And what are the advantages of having a flat rate income tax system? Well, if you can't think of the advantages after doing a whole bunch of tax questions, then I don't think you're thinking hard enough. Obviously, a flat income tax system is simpler. It's much more simple. And do you think of a flat tax rate would be fairer? Why or why not? Now, this is a beautiful open-ended question because, one, you could say that, well, everybody's taxed the same, and so that's equitable. Other people would say that it's more equitable that people who can shoulder more of the burden should then pay more of the tax. This is an ideological argument, and so really, providing that you're reasonable, you can't really get that one wrong. Okie dokie.